Look who's here. Our first guest tonight was once the all-time leading rusher at BYU. He remains in the top 4. Starred in some of the Cougars' biggest football games. Now the assistant director of multicultural student services on campus, running back guru, which we'll talk about. Our pleasure to welcome to the Wise Guys, the pride of Bonanza High School in Las Vegas, the great Jamal Willis. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love the intro, Bonanza. Awesome.
Yes, Dave's a Vegas guy, right? He's an Orem High guy, but as you know, Jamal, because you were down there during that time, Dave was a sports anchor and hosted shows and was a news anchor in that Las Vegas market. How many years were you there?
20 years.
For 20 years down there.
Here's the thing about Bonanza, and we want to talk about the Bengals for a minute. They went through a phase of turning out performers, including baseball star Kris Bryant, won the World Series with the Cubs. Imagine Dragons singer Dan Reynolds. He was in 2005. All-American volleyball star Michelle Fellows Lewis, Chad's wife. My son-in-law, Mike Winn, married Courtney. I put him on the list.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
And, of course, Jamal Willis. What is it about Bonanza High School?
Well, it's obviously something in the air there. It's amazing how, a lot of the former athletes and, those type of professionals that came out of Bonanza. I mean, we even had Andre Agassi's sister that went there.
Yeah.
And Gerald Riggs,
right.
Actually, back in the days, he went there as well. So we put out some superstars. So it was a, great opportunity, great, program there at Bonanza High School back in the days, right?
It's just as hot in Vegas today as when you were there. That hasn't changed, but so much else has.
It's 115 down there today. Have you had a chance to interact with Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons before? Bonanza High grad?
I have not.
Oh, man, we need to hook those two up.
Yeah.
Do so.
Yeah. So Dan follows BYU. He was at BYU, and they launched Imagine Dragons when they were up here with a group from BYU. And we stood with Dan and with Danny Ainge on the sidelines at the BYU-Arizona game down in Allegiant Field when it was down there. And yeah, he's kind of followed BYU his whole life. If we told him you were a Bonanza guy, he would definitely want to meet you.
Yeah. Let's connect.
Okay, we'll connect.
Let's connect.
So after Bonanza, you come up here from 91 to 94. You get here the year after Ty wins the Heisman, and he's ready for his senior year. You had a monster schedule. But in your career, you go 2-2 against the Utes. So after a separation of 13 years as members of the same conference, which will be next year, Cougars and Utes are getting back together. How do you feel about that?
I love it. I love it. It's one of those things where when they took that game away, right, it was just it just took something from us as former players, right? We always look for that game, and that was one of the games where it was kind of check the box. Obviously we were trying to win the conference, but that was regardless of winning the conference, we wanted to win that game. So I'm excited actually for them to be back because it's, you as an athlete, you play for something, right? And you play for conferences, but to have that in-state rival, there's nothing else like that.
Yeah.
It's such a fun game. It's fun for the fans. It's fun for the players, and I'm excited, looking forward to that game again.
It's interesting to me, Jamal. I saw Kyle Whittingham in an interview just a couple of days before the whole breakdown of the Pac-12 and all that, and the interviewer asked Kyle, "Well, what about your rivalry game?" And Kyle sat there for a minute and he goes, "Which one?" And they said, he goes, "Do you mean in the league or outside the league? Because we have a rival outside." And he was trying to downplay. He's like, "Well, we've developed a few rivalries in the league. USC's been a pretty good rival." And I just sat there and I'm listening to it and I'm going, "Kyle, the fact that you have multiple in your own league tells me you don't have a rival. You have a rival, and they're right down in Provo."
He knows. He just hates to admit it.
But he can admit it now because they're in the same conference again. And you know what? Kalani would tell you the same thing. Who's your rival, Kalani? He's going to be like, well, we'll have something with Baylor. We'll have something with TCU. But Utah and BYU are rivals. And to have them in the same league, something just feels right about it, doesn't it?
It does, and that was one of those games where we had, at the start of the season, that was one of the goals, of the many goals, and now looking forward to that. I think it's just exciting for players, and obviously for those who, are new and never had that rival, to be able to experience that is just something else. It's funny how I look back and just see how competitive the fans would get in that game. And, we would be competitive as former players when the game started, right? But,
right.
A lot of us still had relationships off the field with some of those players, but when it was game time, it was like, we're representing the Y and you guys are representing the U, and we're going to win it, so I'm excited for it.
What do you make of this now with the four additions from the Pac-12? Colorado came first, then the other three. Now you got a 16-team conference. Is that too big, or does that feel right to you?
I think nothing surprises me anymore about the landscape of college football. And I think anything that could bring more excitement, right? Because I think now we're playing on the biggest stage right now. You know what I mean? When you're talking about the competitive level and just the fans, and it's bigger football that's going to be played week after week. I don't think so. I think with the 60 team, it feels right. I think the opportunities are just going to work out for everyone.
San Antonio is with us tonight. And we invite all of you to let us know where you're streaming from. Jamal Willis is our guest, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Wise Guys, ysguys.com. Jamal's number 4 in school history in rushing with 2,877 yards and 32 touchdowns. What are the chances that a guy named Jamal Williams would pass you by and be the number 1 all-time rusher? So you got Jamal Willis at number 4 and Jamal Williams at number 1 with Harvey Unga and Curtis Brown in between. What a group.
Yeah, I'm just still excited. I'm in the top 5, and I'm 50 years old now, so that's a great thing, And Kurt, with Jamal, he's I knew he was going to be the one,
really,
right? Just because with what he brought to the table, and I think at that point running was different here than when I was here. You know what I mean? Running was a priority. Now than when I was here. It was just running was just when I was here. It was just like to give Ty a break every now and then.
That explained how many receptions you had.
My question. I don't think any of these guys have the combination of the rushing yards and the number of catches that you had, because you were a big part of the passing game back in those days.
I was, and that I had to become the big part because that was the only time I was going to touch the ball. I had to catch the ball, But I always credit myself. I felt I was a very good running back, but I looked at myself as an athlete. If you wanted to line me up and catch a pass, that's what I felt. And I know with LaBelle and those guys, I felt they knew that I could be a big part of it, just getting the ball in my hand. So. Yeah, so that's I was
standing. I don't know if I ever told you this, Jamal, but I was standing with Lavelle and with Bill Walsh. One time, and it was spring before your last year, and Lavelle and Bill were talking, and Bill Walsh just said, "That's one of the most impressive athletes I have ever seen." And Lavelle said, that he is. So they recognize that too. It brought an amazing amount of athleticism to that position with your length and your speed, but your ability to run downhill, to run outside, and then to come out of the backfield and catch the football is rare. And in today's football, they don't ask very many guys to do all the things that they asked you to do they?
They don't. And I credit just a lot of my upbringing with playing sports. I mean, I was a 3-sport athlete. So when I came here, I felt I had the skills to pretty much do whatever they wanted me to, not just run the ball. I mean, granted, I wanted to run the ball.
You did kickoffs too.
I did kickoff returns, but I think that was a great thing because obviously I'm 6'3". I was a very tall running back. You know what I mean? I was honestly a big target, when you're talking about going through the middle. But I had a lot of the skills that little guys had. I was quick with my feet. I just had an overall athleticism. And I think that's what helped me to have success here at BYU with the passing game as well.
St. George is in the house tonight. Thank you for watching the Wise Guys. We're visiting with Jamal Willis. We're going to talk about the coming season in a second. Let's take a trip down memory lane. You ready?
I'm ready.
Because, it's not often a guy gets to talk about how great he is. But on this show, you do.
All right.
And so let's go to September 21. This is an interesting one because your career was so opposite of this. September 21, 1991, BYU at Penn State. And on your first carry, what happened?
Was it the kickoff return?
I think it was the first carry from scrimmage where it was your first fumble.
That's where I was going to get to.
Yes.
It was a fumble. And I remember that. And they took me out right after that.
So you had one play and you were out.
That was it?
Yeah, it was like they put me in it. I'll just tell you, when I was in that stadium, I'm from Bonanza High School where there's only like a few hundred people that show up. I got in that stadium and it was like over 80, 90,000 in there and they were screaming. I lost track of what I was doing because I was so nervous, being in front of those people.
Sure.
And actually the ball just came out because I wasn't focused. And then, I remember Coach Edwards pulled me over and said, Jamal, you're going to be okay. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I want to play the rest of the game. So just keep me on the sideline.
Talk to that just a little bit, because there's those BYU's going to play at Texas this year where there's 100,000+ fans in the stands. When there's that many people, even if they're all just talking to each other, the noise is kind of numbing, isn't it? How do you stay focused in an environment like that and focus on the game when literally all of that is going on around you?
Yeah, it's tough, but as a football player, you kind of get used to it, right, to block it out. But it's still tough because I remember that game with Penn State, I couldn't even hear cadence. So I would have to watch the ball, you know, and it was that loud and it's chaotic and it's just like, it's a different world playing in those type of stadiums than playing in a normal, if it's like a Stanford with 15,000. I mean, it's just on a different level.
You remember when Arizona State came in and they had like 9 false starts?
They couldn't think.
Because they were right in front of the Rock and they were out of their minds.
Oh, yeah.
The Rock should have got the MVP that night, in my opinion, because they impacted the game. You know, we opened in '82. That's a long time ago, folks. I know, but at Georgia in Athens, which is 90,000 crazy people. You know, Dave's done broadcast the game from Tennessee, which is amazing.
106.
But I remember we warmed up and there were a lot of people there, but not too many. They were all out tailgating. But when we went back in and got our full pads on, you come out for the last time. As we got into the tunnel, we heard this. It was like, I was like, what is that? What are they? Robbie and Bosco and I are next to each other. It's like, I'm like, what are they saying? We get a little bit further, and it's just growing. It's getting louder and louder. Pretty soon, 90,000 people before we run out of the tunnel are going, dog meat, dog meat. And I looked at Robbie, I go, that kind of gives me the chills. That's kind of cool. That's what it's like. Like you kind of get the chills and you recognize like, whoa, we are not at home, but you can get some energy from a vocal, a visiting, like a crowd that you're away for. You can pull some energy from that, right?
Yeah, you know, and it just takes me back to Notre Dame when we played Notre Dame down there in South Bend. You know, it's something about when you play at those stadiums that breed football, and that's all they want to see is football. They're rooting for their team, you know, and we were able to go in there and beat them.
Right.
And after the game, it was almost like the fans were coming up to us saying, hey, great game, BYU. You know, and it was just chaotic, but it was the nostalgia of football. You knew that something was deep rooted in that program when it comes to football. And I enjoyed, especially going down there, beating those type of teams. So
you had a great game, too. We'll talk about it in a bit. Let's go to November 16th, 1991. This is just a few months after your first carry at Penn State. At San Diego State, 11 rushes, 66 yards and a touchdown, 8 catches, 163 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
That's what we're talking about.
Cougars trailed 45-24 late in the third. Your touchdown receptions were 31 and 49 yards, and you score with 30 seconds remaining, and you celebrate a 52-52 tie, which put you in the Holiday Bowl, kept them out.
Oh, yeah.
What was that moment? What was that night like for a guy who was such a big part of it?
It was really a blur, you know, and honestly, it's like a lot of athletes, when you kind of play out of yourself, you know, you have that feeling where you're just doing everything when you touch the ball, you do something big. And obviously with Marshall Faulk being there, we were
that
both
was pretty
freshmen,
cool.
and he already had the limelight, you know, and I was kind of trying to compete against him, you know what I mean? I was like, you know, we're on, you know, ESPN. That was probably one of the longest games of my life. It seemed like it lasted all night, you know. But it was just such a great opportunity. And Ty, the great thing about Ty, a lot of the plays that I scored on, which was pass plays, they were made up. It was scramble.
He just scrambled and found you.
And we would just look at each other, and he would throw with the ball. You know what I mean? And it was just
like the side yard.
Yeah, it was just like we were playing pickup games, you know, like you do in the, you know, the front yard, backyard. But, you know, that was the one game that really put me on the map, I would say. It really put me on the map.
But I called that game for BYU TV for the rebroadcast. And I'll never forget one play. So, and we're going to they can see us on camera. Like, if you're here, Jamal, so this is you and this is Ty, and you're running this way, and Ty's here, and then he starts to flush out this way, you turn around and you get back in his vision, right?
Exactly.
So that's scramble rule, right? So Jamal's going this way, Ty's scrambling out, he comes this way, and Jamal runs with him. Then he throws you the ball, and you leap up, and the ball is thrown behind you. Do you remember this play?
Yes, I do.
And you leaped up in the air, and it's almost like a Michael Jordan move where he stood in the air, and he was all spread out with that long body, and he reached back, and he caught the ball with one hand behind him and just went, whoop, and brought it in. Do you remember that play?
I remember it.
One of the best plays I've ever seen. Honestly, tell us about it.
You know, it's one of those things where when that, I just stuck my hand there and it just stuck. Yeah, it just stuck, you know. And I think that goes back to the relationship that we had with Ty, and we practiced that in practice. We called it, obviously the scramble, but we had another word for it. It was just get open. You know what I mean? It was just get open. Yeah. And I think that was a time where, that game was just, we had to do above and beyond extra things, because it was just one of those games where we had to kind of make plays for ourselves, and we had to improvise, and that was one of those improvise. And that play there kept the drive going as well. That was a huge play, you know what I mean? Because I think it was almost like fourth down or whatever.
I think it might have been a fourth down play,
And I converted that, and it just stuck, so.
He stuck his hand out behind him, one-handed it, and brought it in. And got
I've never had one just stick on my hand. Have you ever had one just stick on your hand?
Well, Jamal, let's show people how big Jamal's hands are. That's why.
Okay, all right.
And I don't have. We got a different camera angle. I want people to see that. So I don't know if you can see that, but I have big hands for a quarterback, and Jamal's hands, they're not quite Kawhi Leonard's.
No, but they're right.
When I've held my hand up against Kawhi's, my fingers go to there.
Following year, November 14th, 1992, BYU and Air Force. You win the game 28-7. Rushed for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. In there was your career-long 80-yard touchdown run. What do you remember from that play?
Wow, and that was, I had a few long ones that were like 60, but that 80-yard run, and I loved playing Air Force. I just loved.
You had big games against Air Force.
I had big games. It was probably because they were a little bit overmatched. You know what I mean? Because our line used to blow big holes for me, and that was just that one play. I think I ran down the sideline basically and just took off. That was one of those plays where, I had a great line, and they opened the holes for me, and I just hit them, and I felt that I had enough speed to kind of take it to the house. So, yeah, I remember that play, my longest run.
You took it to the house.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, December 25th, so the next month, 1992, we bring this one up because it's in the Aloha Bowl, and you guys are playing Kansas, who now is in the same league with BYU. It'll be the second meeting. So that's the only other meeting
and
with
the
Kansas.
Historic Big 12 opener.
Yeah, and they open up the Big 12 conference with Kansas. And that one, you had 11 rushes, 52 yards, and a touchdown. What do you remember about playing Kansas?
I remember, obviously, we were in Hawaii, right? Playing them in Hawaii. So it was really hot. I remember that. But I remember I had one touchdown, ran around the end. It was the sweep, because really only had a couple plays: sweep right, sweep left, and a draw play. That
toss
was
28, toss 29.
Yeah, and
ride 28, ride 29, and handoff.
Yeah, and I remember that play. It was just a great cutback, and I went in and scored. But I remember Dana Stubblefield, and I played with him for the 49ers, and he would always just, tease me on how they, that game and things like that. But it was just another opportunity. We played in a lot of big games, and those were just one of the big games. And so I'm excited to have that. Another opportunity to see that.
1993 in October, Utah State in a 58-56 game. The Aggies won it, but you had 3 touchdowns, including a career-long 72-yard touchdown reception. You remember that play?
I remember that play. I try to forget that game, but it was.
Was John Walsh hit you on a fly, or what was it?
Yes, John Walsh. He just hit me basically just in stride. You know what I mean? And caught it and just took it all the way, and that was one of those games where it was just one of those weird games, what I mean? We were expected we should have pretty much single-handedly beat that team pretty well, but they just played hard, and it was a different environment down there, and before you know it, we got behind, and it was just, it went wayward for us.
What goes through the mind of a person who's galloping 72 yards for a touchdown?
You're hoping no one's behind you, closing in.
Now they look on the video board. Back then you couldn't do that, right?
I didn't, and it's funny now. Back then I used to high step a lot, and they didn't throw flags. But anyway, it's one of those things where you just try to you try not to look back, and you just try to just keep your eye on the end zone. Yeah. That goal line.
I wonder when we see BYU enter into the Big 12. You look at Big 12 scores every week. That's not a crazy game in the Big 12, 58-56. That was BYU was a big-time scoring team when you played, but 58-56 was even unusual. What do you think it'll be like in the Big 12? Is it going to be like the old WAC and early Mountain West days when the ball's all over the place in the high-scoring games, or is there going to be some defense played in that league?
I think you'll see a little bit of both. I think it's the quality of teams you're seeing now. I think you'll see a little different mix week to week. I think scoring, obviously, is going to be a priority on all team side, but you'll see a lot more defense, and honestly, the athletes are different now. We were talking about athleticism and pure athleticism at every position, D-line, O-line. It's just different, so I'm excited because you're going to see those big score games, and you're going to see those grind out games, you know. And I think I've learned, and I've kind of watched how Kalani and how they've recruited and brought in players, and I think the biggest thing they've done is depth. That's huge, because I feel like we have that first string, we can match up.
Yeah.
It's just when guys start getting injured, then it's like you go to second team and there's a drop off. So you look at running back, they fill that room up, you know, with depth and other positions. So I'm excited just to see that move forward and see what happens.
Patrick Flood says Jamal Willis is the GOAT.
Yes, he is.
He's on the Wise
We're
Guys.
glad to have him here, the GOAT, with us tonight.
Mentioned those running stats a moment ago. Good pass catcher, finished with 76 receptions for 1,117 yards and 6 touchdowns. Let's go back to Notre Dame for a moment.
You mentioned Notre Dame, October 15th, 1994, and that is a special place to play, right? You're at number 17 Notre Dame. You go in there and get a win, 21-14, 18 carries, which is a lot for back in that day. 75 yards, a touchdown. You also had 5 receptions, 83 yards, and a touchdown receiving. You scored the game-winning touchdown in that third quarter. Take us back to South Bend and reminisce about what that was like for us.
Wow, you know, first of all, touchdown Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just walking, I remember just getting off the plane and just busing to the campus, and then early that morning you see kind of the fog. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like when you used to watch the old, you know what I mean, Notre Dames and things like that.
Rudy sitting by the pond, right?
Yeah, totally. You know, you see the sign where you're coming out and there's a yellow sign there, you're hitting that. But just stepping on that field and just, there was something just about playing at that place, right? That just, you know, it breathed just life when it comes to football, and the fans were just awesome. But that was a game where I wanted to step up and I wanted to make a name for myself. And that was probably the first game where I actually had to play smash mouth football. I mean, there were some key first downs in that game that kept the ball moving. I think those were more of, I feel, just as important as scoring the touchdowns, because I kept the ball. And I really had to drag people, you know what I mean, and get first down. So that was one of the first games where afterwards I was just beat up. You know what I mean? I mean, because using the WAC, you know, we just spread it out and throw the ball and run sweeps, but I really had to run powers. And I was like so sore after that game. But it was
What
one
a
of those
big
games.
win. What a big win to give Lavelle.
Yes, and Lavelle, all of us love Lavelle, you know, and that was one of those things where, you know, we felt that we could go in and win. And once when we got up, it was no turning back, you know, and Lavelle, that was the first time I really saw him kind of really get into it.
Oh, yeah.
He really got fired up. And usually he's kind of like relaxed. He got fired up at halftime, and it was just to win it for him, but win it for the program and the fans was just awesome. It was just a great experience.
Just a few more questions with Jamal tonight. You played at 6'3", 230. Aiden Robbins comes in at 6'3", 235, transfer from UNLV. What do you expect from Robbins in this offense this fall?
With Aiden, Aiden is a physical runner. He's got size. He's got good speed. He's a downhill runner, you know, and he's a move the pile guy, you know, but he has breakaway speed too. You know, he's one of those guys, if we probably had 4 years, he may be number one, to be honest. You know what I mean? He's got that type of skill. And I had the opportunity to work with him a little bit over the summer. And I was very impressed with just his leadership and just the skill that he brings to that position. And I just think hopefully they will ride him, you know, and give him the ball. And, you know, he'll hopefully have he will have some great games. He's got a lot of talent.
Does he remind you of a little bit of you?
He does. Really? You know, he really does. And I really believe he's probably more of a physical-minded back than I was.
Really?
You know, because I was so involved in the pass game and just getting out, making people miss. He's more of he looks for physicality. He will run through you. But he can get out and catch balls, too, and he has some athleticism with him. I think he's a complete back, you know, a big back. You know, we're talking 6'3", 240. That's big. You know what I mean?
It seemed like last year, Jamal, 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 was scary for fans. We go, oh no, it's 3rd and 1. Like, can we get one? They didn't have an Aiden Robbins back there, right? And they didn't have Tyler Algier, who on 3rd and 1 seemed like it was automatic. He'd get downhill and he'd go get it, even if it wasn't blocked. Do you think with Aiden Robbins at that feature spot that BYU becomes a better short yardage football team this fall?
I have no doubt they will. And the main thing is where the running game is going to be a priority playing in this league. You're going to have to run the ball. You know what I mean? And I think even though, obviously we have a good quarterback, but he's new, right? He's new in our program, so there's going to be some learning curves and getting everybody together. But I feel there's going to be games where we're going to have to be run heavy, and I think Aiden and a few other backs that they have, will be able to carry it,
Yeah, looking forward to that. Hey, Les from Santa Fe, New Mexico. A shout out to Jamal and Multicultural Student Services. How's SOAR going this year? And we were just about to ask you, tell us about your work on campus.
Well, let me kind of change that a little bit.
Okay.
I no longer work in multicultural.
All right.
I'm the associate director of student wellness.
Okay, student wellness.
So I just changed over. And actually, SOAR is going really good. And we sponsor, we have events for SOAR for those students. And, we're excited when those high school students come down because they use our facilities.
Sure.
And we provide, sports and games for them. But yeah, so I'm in student wellness now.
So student wellness, what do you do?
I oversee our intramurals, extramural sports, our swell courses that are all of our activity courses with adjunct faculty, oversee scheduling for the IPF, so we kind of work with athletics, and all Smithfield House, the RB, those type of things, and Outdoors Unlimited.
So wait
a minute, when my intramurals basketball team, Robbie Bosco and my team got kicked out of intramurals, you would have been the guy we would have come to get reinstated after the fight, right?
Yes, we would have had to sit down and talk.
Yeah, a long talk.
Just for the
It'd be
record,
a long talk.
just for the record, we did get reinstated because we didn't start the fight, obviously.
Okay.
We may have finished the fight, but we didn't start it. We did get reinstated, and we went on to win the BYU Intramurals Championship, played that year in the Marriott Center against Todd Shell, first-round draft pick linebacker, and his team from Arizona. Two football player teams played in the championship there, and we did get kicked out, but we got reinstated.
Did you get T-shirts, though?
Oh, yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes.
As long as you got a T-shirt.
Yes.
Now everyone gets T-shirts. Tell us about Cutback Elite 29.
That's my program that I've been doing about almost 20 years now, and I've been working
creating running backs.
Well, running backs and athletes. It's kind of morphed into more athleticism and training athletes to become better athletes. And that's my focus. And a lot of kids nowadays, right, they don't specialize in 2 or 3 sports, so their opportunities to build athleticism at a young age, kind of plays a back seat. So I try to train them up to get them athletic, to move quicker, cut sharper, and play better. That's kind of my motto.
and every coach is happy that you do that.
I hope.
Absolutely. Well, and I love the fact that you've had a chance to work with Aiden Robbins and some of the guys that are currently in the program, and it helps the program when you're doing stuff like that, for sure. That's fun.
Nick Robinson just got here. He's going to join us in a couple of minutes.
He's in the green room.
Wise guys. He's in the green room.
He's in the green room. Can we please get some green carpet at some point?
Maybe some green tape or something over there just to say. All right, you ready for 5 questions? We'll get you out the door.
Yeah, everybody gets 5 questions. This is how we get to know you. And you're not allowed to really think about these. You just answer.
Despite the other 35 questions we've already asked you.
That's great.
And Nick, you're going to get it too. So
and some are the same, Nick, but we always cater 1 or 2 questions at the end that are specific to you. So let's start with your favorite sports movie, Jamal.
Remember the Titans.
That's our number 1.
It's so good. We watched it over the football stadium when they showed it a couple Friday nights ago. It's awesome.
Out on the field on the big screen. How fun was that? So, your favorite singer or band?
Oh, wow. Let's do Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
I could go for that. We were just arguing the other day with my kids who were saying that Taylor Swift is taken over as the greatest of all time. I'm like, I just said, I have just 2 words for you. Michael Jackson.
Yes.
That's what I said to them. So.
Yeah. Did they believe you? Did they buy it?
Well, then they were like, oh, yeah, we forgot about Michael. Yeah, we forgot about Michael. So Taylor Swift's pretty talented. I'm not taking away from her.
She is.
So favorite breakfast cereal?
Tricks.
Tricks are for kids.
No, they're not.
But sometimes
not for
kids. For tricky rabbits and for dads. They're sometimes for dads. So favorite BYU moment. And it doesn't even have to be on the football field. It might be, but any BYU moment that's your favorite.
I think there's many favorites. One of my favorites is being able to just having relationships with my teammates.
Yeah.
That's one thing right now that I remember a lot of things, but that's the one thing that I felt was one of my favorites is just the relationships I have with teammates.
Good.
That's what it's all about. So, okay,
right, number 5.
The last one is your favorite advice from former BYU gymnast and your wife, Leslie. What's the best bit of advice that she ever gave you?
Oh, wow.
And she's listening, so think this one through.
Be kind.
So that's what she said. She just be kind.
Be kind.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice.
I hope.
Yeah.
You know, if we were all more kind, the whole world would be different.
Be a better
You
place.
know, and so the simple truth of be kind. So you think you represented her well there on that, Leslie? I hope,
think I do okay.
I hope
when
he's
he
doing
gets
okay.
home, I want you to say that's exactly the best advice I've ever given.
So
All right, what kind of record is this football team going to have this fall? What do you think?
Oh wow, I don't want to get into that.
did they
I'm
get,
pulling for 8 wins.
8.
See,
8 would be a phenomenal
we
season.
just talked about that on the show on the After Further Review show today. Both Dave Nixon and I agreed that 8's not crazy.
No, it's not.
8's not crazy.
It's not. Just with a little luck
Yeah.
here and there.
Things have to go right. You
Yeah,
got to
things
stay
have to go
healthy, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got to stay healthy. So
The pride of Bonanza High School. Best of luck with student wellness and with Cutback Elite 29. By the way, how do they get a hold of Cutback Elite 29?
Just that's my Instagram. They can either Instagram or they can go, my Facebook, same thing.
And
TikTok, all that.
If you want to be an All-American running back, that's what
this
you
is
do.
where you go.
That's
Cut back
where you
Elite
go.
29.
That's what they say, right?
That's what we say. That's what we're
The
saying.
proof
tonight.
is there. The proof
The
is
great
there.
Jamal Willis, thank you so much
Thanks
for
so
being
much,
with us.
Thanks for
Jamal.
having me.
We appreciate you coming.
We'll see you at the stadium this fall.
Alrighty.
Number 4 all-time in rushing, Jamal Willis here on the Wise Guys.